What's up? So first time we've done this. This is like a panel where we're just gonna talk about music from the different. Oh, my shoes are in here. I was doing a job interview with somebody a few minutes ago. I left my shoes right on the floor in the studio.
Hey, you can't see it on the cameras though.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah.
Oh, your Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
Your hippie shoes.
I was down here like 20 minutes ago interviewing someone for a position, and my shoes are just right in the floor. My bad. Okay, I want to introduce everybody. Chris Owen. I know Chris from Twitter. I don't know Chris, but I know Chris from Twitter because he's always like, shut up. He's always like, 17 years ago, this was the number 7 song according to all diaries in the Meridian, Mississippi market. He's so detailed. He knows chart. Yeah.
Sounds much cooler than what I do.
Yeah, Chris. What's the deal? Like, what are you doing now? Because you live here now, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, because when I first started following you, I think you were like upstate New York.
Yep, Western New York.
Is that?
Yep,
Okay.
from Buffalo. So
what do you do now? What's your job?
I am the creative director at Cornman Music with Brett James and Nate Lowry.
Oh, you got a real job.
Yeah.
Big time.
What's really cool is, and I could be wrong with this, and we've had a couple people in here who have really prominent positions in the Nashville music community who started out writing comments or tweeting, and people went, oh, they actually kind of know what they're talking about. Let me learn more about them. Then it was, oh, they actually do know. Let me hire them. Is that kind of how it happened for you?
That's pretty much how it happened.
How did that job position come about?
I mean, I was coming down here for like a year and a half before I actually got hired. So I didn't think I was going to do the music industry thing. I thought I was just going to do radio forever. And then I had 1 interview that turned into 2 interviews and 3, and then it just kind of snowballed. And so I met Jesse Frazier, and Jesse's written a bunch of hits before, and he put me in touch with Ben Vaughn, who runs Warner Chappell, and Ben put me in touch with Brett James and Nate Lowry. Met with them for about an hour. Thought it went great. Didn't know much about Cornman, but I knew a lot about Brett. And then a week and a half later, I get the call asking if I wanted the job. So
What job were you doing?
I was doing radio. So I actually got promoted to the assistant PD back in Buffalo at the station I worked at last summer. So
Is there like a wing place there that's awesome for real?
yes.
Like it.
I haven't found
Buffalo
good
wings?
wings yet in Nashville.
Okay, so
And please tell me if you found them. So
wings here?
yeah.
No.
Okay.
But also, I don't have the palate to understand what a great wing is. But sometimes the cliche isn't always true, meaning Buffalo, the inventor of the buffalo wing, must have the greatest buffalo wings. But you're saying they do.
They do. You just got to know what places to go to. So don't go to the quote-unquote tourist traps.
BW3 in Buffalo?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's not.
Hooters.
It's like The Office where Michael
Yeah,
Scott's
don't go to Wingstop.
He's in New York and he's going to get a New York slice, but he goes to
a Sbarro.
a Sbarro, yeah.
So you're telling me wings are from Buffalo? Like that's why they're called buffalo wings?
Yeah,
They're
so
not
There's
from
an OG
Buffalo's.
I mean,
there's a like OG spot there.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
invented in, they're
They
in Buffalo,
invented
right?
them.
Yeah, dude, mind blown. I did not know that.
so
That's
the
amazing.
actual sauce and everything,
Wow.
you know, Butters and Frank's Red Hot is
Where'd you grow up?
Buffalo.
Oh, that's home.
Yep, born and raised, yep.
And so, and I say this in the most positive way because I am one as well. You're a nerd
I am, yeah.
about music
Straight
and
up,
data. Yeah. And
Not a nerd about anything else,
but I think that's what got you
absolutely a
here.
nerd
And
It did,
I say
yeah.
that in the most complimentary way. When did you become so nerdy about music?
I think it was like maybe around middle school or high school where I would listen to the countdown shows. I would listen to like Lon Helton and Bob Kingsley, and then I found out that you could actually see these charts online a week before they actually have them on.
Spoilers.
Yeah, and then that just opened up a whole new world, and I started doing like predictions for the chart and all this stuff and wasting class time, and I don't know, it always fascinated me to do that.
Did you ever reach out to any of the countdown guys, like any of the hosts or anything, or even the local?
I think I used to like write some stuff for them, you know, where you do like the email or like you try to send a letter to Bob Kingsley and stuff like that.
ever get on the air.
And I would like, no.
That'd be cool.
And I would reach out to the local station that I got hired at years later about the charts and about music, and became friends with Brett Allen, who does middays up there. And so I would like reach out, but I didn't think I could make a career out of radio or make a career certainly out of the music industry until like years later. And my dad's like, you can actually go to college for this stuff. And
Also in here is Drew Baldridge, who, I don't know, he runs a label. He's an artist. He digs ditches.
One-man band.
If the ditch will actually get you to number 1, he'll dig
I'll
the
dig
freaking
that
ditch.
some buck.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Where are you this week as we
Man,
record this?
we're
Do you know?
number 8 right now.
Hold on. Chris, what?
He's got the advanced chart.
Do you still keep up with the chart?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's like less time now just because I'm so busy every day.
Sure.
But I try to like log on to the MediaBase account as much as possible to keep
How's
up.
Chris's momentum? Oh, Drew.
Drew's-
You're-
yeah, about to
sorry.
say my momentum's not
Your
that great.
No, your momentum's good. Your momentum's good. Yeah, how's Drew's momentum right now at 8?
It's doing great, and what makes it more impressive is the fact that you have Morgan has 2 songs, one with Post right now in the top 3 or top 2, and then you have the Cody Johnson single and the Shabuzi thing, which is just flying up.
Sure.
There's so much competition right now, and Drew is still crushing it.
How do you feel,
Let's
Drew,
go.
about your spot? Do you feel, are you getting tighter every week, going just last another week, get me one more spot?
Yeah, I feel, I'll be honest, like when we were here last time, a couple weeks ago, I was like pretty stressed, of like what's going to happen. And now I feel like we're in a good groove. Like every week,
Oh, no.
We're moving up.
You don't want to get in that place.
I know.
Oh, that's the
I know.
worst place to be.
I
Like,
do
confidence
feel-
is deadly. Oh,
I do
no.
feel really good though. Just like Chris said, I've just been watching it and seeing like, our upspins and radio friends that, I think the coolest thing is they are cheering us on. Like the obviously we did this kind of by ourselves, crazy way. We talked about it last time, and they are hitting me up like, we want to see this happen for you. We want to try to champion that. So it does feel pretty good and exciting. And I think the weirdest thing is like we always do a call with our team every Monday of like, okay, what can we work on this week? And this week it was the weirdest call ever, and it just like brought tears to my eyes because everybody was like planning the push week. And for that, what that means out there for all you listeners is just like super weird that Nashville plans number ones.
No, it is. And I've gotten in a lot of trouble for revealing that over and
Oh,
over.
so maybe I shouldn't talk about it.
No, you
I'm
should. I've been banned from certain award shows and later reinstated because I would talk about charts and awards and what was really happening.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I were you, I'd check out of this one for a second. Let's get you a number 1 first.
Okay.
Then we can talk about it.
I'm not trying to make
But what
anybody
you're
mad.
saying is
I'm learning.
What they're doing is they're planning just in case it goes number 1.
Yeah. We're planning
and the week that you're going to put your most effort
your
into.
most effort into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, right now we're hoping, and Chris can probably tell you here more closely than what my team even can because he studied it for so long. We're thinking end of August is our goal. Before Labor Day, we're going to try to do that.
If you're 8 now.
If I'm 8 now, yeah, kind of give me 7 to 8 weeks, kind of a week a spot, and hopefully the 1st of September, but hopefully the end of August is kind of my goal.
Chris, summertime, is it different charts than like fall or spring? Do songs last longer? Are they, I don't know, because I know like December's dead. So charts don't even, it's off for a bit.
Pretty much, yeah.
What's summer? Anything?
I feel like if you're gonna get like the peak airplay, you're gonna get it during summertime, where you'll have songs get 92, 93, 9400 spins for like a number 1 song on MediaBase.
Is that big?
Which is like big, yeah. And usually in the summertime is when that happens versus like the fall or winter, where you might have lower spin counts just because of all the Christmas songs that stations are playing. So
Is there a 10,000 song number 1?
it's never happened. No, I mean we're probably getting there. So it keeps
like
creeping
a
up.
Morgan song or a Drew Baldridge song, right?
Or I mean, no better time than the present for Drew to have that record.
Wow.
Eddie, what do you think about Drew's song? Does it good or suck?
It's awesome. What do you mean? No, it's awesome.
He's got to
dude.
say
I
that
love
I'm here. I'm here, Bob.
Oh, trust me, he doesn't have to say that. No, not at all. Drew, you have the odd role of spearheading your entire promotion, you as an artist. It's a multi-pronged approach to having a record that's number 1, but you're all the prongs.
Yeah, and since we talked last, we talked on here about maybe signing with UTA. I actually got a booking agent now. I went with UTA, which is super exciting. So I don't have to book my own shows now, which I was doing for the last 4 or 5 years. Thank you, Bobby.
He's got himself to a number 8 by himself, but I take credit for one interview where we talk. No, I'm totally kidding when I say that.
But yeah, it's been, super, super crazy ride. And I think now what's the hardest thing is enjoying it because everybody's like, what's next? What's your next single? Where are you at with that? And I'm just like, dang, dude, I just feel like I've been fighting Goliath this whole time. And now, like, I'm having trouble enjoying the top 10 because I'm stressed about what the next single is. And because this town moves so fast all the time. And is that next single going to be me again by myself? Right now, yeah. I don't have like a bunch of labels calling or anything.
I would say no. It will not be by yourself. That's what I would guess. Listen, success draws attention. draws people who want to make money, and if they see you can make them money, I mean, we're in a capitalist world.
Yeah, 100%.
I think you just got a booking agent. Far too late for that to actually have happened, but that stuff's gonna start stumbling in,
Well,
and you're not even
I
gonna
appreciate
want some of it. Honestly, you're gonna have learned things where you're going, oh, I don't even need to have this type of person because I know how to do it, or I don't have to have a full capacity person.
Yeah, and I think I'm to that point where I do want somebody. You know, if anybody's listening out there and wants to sign me to a record deal, come on.
But okay, great point. You do, but I would say like a Cody Johnson, for example, signed to Warner, but still, he had created
a business,
his own path, owns basically everything, had the leverage to make that deal a little better. I think you'll have either the leverage to make it a little better or not take one.
Yeah.
Which is the best place to be. Do you know about the Cody Johnson situation?
Oh yeah, for sure. He has one of the best record deals in town. He gets, full creative control, and he gets so much of his music back in terms of just the masters and money and all that. And he had all the leverage before he signed with Warner. He could have just stayed indie and still sold out every single show he played. But he decided to partner with Warner because it was the best opportunity to help him with mainstream radio, but still keep all the stuff that he wanted to keep. So it's like
what
the
advice
best of both worlds.
would you give Drew here about, because he's going to have labels come at him, and it may not be the biggest, or it may not be the most money, or it might be, right? Or maybe people that can provide a certain type of service that you need. What advice would you give Drew about labels when they come calling?
I would say definitely try to explore every single option in terms of what does this record deal give to me that I can't do on my own, and what do I need help with, what do I not need help with, and then all of the money that you could be making with a record deal, and how do the masters look, and all this other stuff you have to factor in. So definitely don't take the first thing that's offered to you. And again, Drew holds all the leverage right now. And when you have a number one song like this where you're doing it all yourself, so
I think a problem that you could get into as well, and it's a great problem to have, and I have a bit of this, where I just did everything myself for so long that it's just expected, even though I have teams, that I'm just going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Where they're like, oh, he knows that, he's already done this. It's like even the radio show. When I started, I was paying for the whole thing. I was funding the whole thing, even the syndication. I was buying the equipment. I was calling the stations. I was hustling stations. I was losing money. Yeah. Broken equipment. Didn't work half the time. We were syndicating to 2 cities. I'm not even sure they're real cities, And so, but because I made it work without any sort of budget for promotion, we don't have to give him promotion. He can do it himself.
Yeah. And see, that's something that I think about all the time now is if you go to one of these labels, I know how it works, so
they can't really pull the wool over the old eyes.
There's no wool, I'm going to know, hey, did you call so-and-so about this? Because that's what we did on this last one. And I think, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in their eyes, but I will say, I do have a problem now of a little bit of, control of my business and what's going on, because I've been doing this alone for a long time.
And it's all your money now.
Yeah, it's all my money. I fund it all, and it's a lot when you start looking back at it. But obviously, it's an investment in us moving forward. But yeah, just like you said, funding your own show, buying your own gear, it's that's what we're doing right now, funding it, buying it, going on tour, paying for the guys. And I saw your post just last week, breakdown of artists' pay, and stuff. That's real, of artists normally makes about 15% after the show's done or whatever. We're very lucky that the masters don't do that. But
what do you, Chris, with TikTok, the longevity of songs, and we can even say chart specific, how has TikTok affected that?
I think it's pretty interesting. It's changed a lot in the past 2 or 3 years, where I think 3 years ago you saw radio stations really not that they didn't pay attention to TikTok. They just didn't jump on the viral trend right when it was happening. And then after Last Night by Morgan, they're like, no, we're going to jump on this immediately. You're seeing it with the Shabuzi song right now. Radio loves it, and people love it.
They fought it, though, for a long time, too, right?
It's almost like you have to start playing when it's that successful.
Walker Hayes was the first one that I saw.
Fancy yep.
Radio fight, but then lose. And they were like, fine, we'll freaking play. And it was massive, and it tested massive. But it's I think that taught radio a lesson. Sometimes get out of your own way.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't all the time. Most of the time, it doesn't.
And that's what our song was at, but it took 2 years to put it out to radio. But
you'd have mentioned Applebee's in the song, it'd have probably
I know. Well, I would have worked. But I just think too, the testing is what is so big. And if they send it out to their listeners, they already know it because of this app.
Great point about testing, because research, testing, whatever you want to call it, what happens is, at least and I haven't been in the music part of the world I'm in years, right? So I can play a song if I like it, but I don't get involved in that anymore. I'm just there to create compelling content with my buddy Eddie, and then we tour, and then we come home. That's it, right, Eddie?
That's it. That's our life.
That's all we do. So I was, the first part of my Nashville stay, I was breaking artists. You could break an artist like crazy. I could at the platform I had.
Yeah.
So I would try to understand more about the charts and what to play, when to play it, that type of thing. What was my point?
I don't know.
I was going somewhere really good. What were we talking about?
Testing.
Yeah,
Boom,
research.
thank you. We research these songs. I would never research them, but I would see the results of the research. And sometimes I see the results now. I never ask for it, but someone will come to me and go like, hey, what do you think about this song? And I'm like, I don't know it. And they're like, what do you mean you don't know it? I'm like, I hear like 6 songs. We might play, if in 2 hours, a song or 2.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't listen to country. I'm not somewhere where a radio is.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not working on, I'm home, or I'm picking songs that I like. I listen to country music, but I'm not looking for the chart, the top 20 songs to play. And so they would research these songs, and what they would do is they would play, they'd get a listener on the internet. Now it's web-based for the most part. They just play it over the phone.
Oh, wow.
They play all these clips, hooks over the phone. And
what's crazy is you got 10 seconds.
that's it, a clip
Yeah,
over the
That's
phone.
all that matters.
And they'd rate it.
And that's what's scary. Like when you send this out, for me, I remember they would call back and be like, hey, you had a bad research and we're going to move your song down. Be like, well, what hook are you testing? Somebody be like, oh, part of the second verse. I'm
And
like,
what was your sample
freaking
size?
why?
Yeah.
You know?
What was
And
your
they-
sample
like,
size? Yep.
Do
Oh, the
this one.
sample
Here's the
size
chorus.
is so small too, like with research. It's like that's not how data should work. If you have such a small sample size, you're playing such a small clip of the song, and you're determining, careers like out of this, especially if it's a debut single.
Who
And
does
basically,
that?
basically, they're like, okay, here's a little part of a song. It's mostly, you ever heard this?
Yeah,
And do you like it? And the problem is, it's hard to go, you ever heard this, to a song that's not played a lot, and they're researching a song that's not played a lot to see if people like it, but they can't like it if they haven't heard it.
it's a vicious cycle that's
Very
been happening
much
for
so.
years in radio. Yeah,
TikTok has actually fixed that so much. An example, the Alexander K. Riley Green song. All over TikTok, right? And I'm like, I don't know who's playing it, why they're playing it, but I just started playing it because it's good. Excuse me. Do you know where that is now?
that's not a radio currently, but it should be a radio
Because it's so
It's
big.
so
It's
massive.
big.
Yeah,
It's so, and I didn't look it up. Sometimes, like once every 2 or 3 months, I'll ask Mike. Like I checked on your song the other day because
Oh, nice.
you're fine.
Am I all okay?
You're medium, mid, as the kids would say. But I didn't even ask, and I was like, we're just gonna play it because it's ubiquitous on TikTok and Instagram. It's everywhere.
Yeah, everybody knows it.
And I bet that song would research okay to pretty good with never being played on the radio. So I just started playing it.
Well, that's what a lot of stations, when we first sent this out, they didn't believe in my team and what we were doing because this is really hard to do. So I would just go to them and say, hey, test it. I'm not even asking you to play it. Just throw it in your research, please. And it took weeks and weeks and weeks. And they were like, well, we need to see you get this many stations on before we test it. And then I would hit that and be like, please test it. And then that's how we got our airplay, was all by people researching it and it testing in the top 5
And
off their first
because
test. Because
yours was all over social media,
Yeah.
they would hear it there because they weren't going to hear it on the radio because no one
No.
was playing it.
It was all because of social media.
That's a great point that has actually helped artists in testing when a
Yeah.
song goes viral or viral-ish in the format.
yeah, you can't like it if you don't know it. That's
That's always been the problem, right? With the art, like, okay, it's at 28, we're going to test it. If it does well, we'll move it up. But if it doesn't, it's like it's 28. When are you playing it? Overnights, people don't even get to hear it.
Yep.
And you want to test something to see if people like it when they've actually never heard it. So then you're making them, and I don't know many people that hear a song the first time and go, that song's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it
It'll
happens
grow
in
on you.
publishing all the time. It's like you play a song for somebody hoping that it gets cut, and you play a verse chorus and they pass on it. It's like, man, that's really not how music works in the real world. It's like you play a song and you kind of like it, and then you hear it again and again, and now you love it. And we've had so many songs which is a perfect example of that. I mean, that's how music was to me growing up. I would hear a song more and more, and I loved it more and more. So
And I never liked new songs when I was just a listener. I'd be like, what is it? Something new? Third time, I'm like, oh, I got
That's
it.
great. Yeah.
I love it. Let's do this around the room. You heard this song. It could have been on the radio or streaming. And you're like, oh my, the first time. Because it's only happened to me like 2 or 3 times in my life where I'm like, this song is such a massive hit. You're going to laugh at one of mine. Where I heard it the first time and I was like, what? This song is a monster. It doesn't even have to be in your professional time.
Okay.
Chris, I'm sure you have 100 of these, but what's one for you? The first time you heard it, you were like, there is no doubt this is a hit.
When I was a kid, I think the first time it ever happened to me, I was maybe 12, 13. It was Mark Wills at 19-something. First time I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's big. There's no way this isn't a huge hit. And it was, but there are certain songs that have come out that I thought was going to be a huge hit, and it ended up like bombing at radio.
Yeah, me too. Same.
And there's no more. I mean, that's one of the least favorite parts of the job is when you're so confident in something and it just flames out. It peaks at like 36 or something.
You know,
You're like,
and the
what?
fair thing is, which is actually unfair, the fair thing about what you're saying is that it probably wasn't even that the song wasn't awesome.
No, there's so many other factors.
Didn't get strategically researched at the right time with the right part of the music to the right sample size, therefore it dies.
It might have been bad timing. Like, I know, one example in 2015 with Logan Mize, Can't Get Away From a Good Time. I think you needed 1 million in audience just to crack the top 60 on Billboard, and I've never seen that before. And it was just so competitive, and it was bro country, and it was kind of like, you're set up for failure. There's nothing you can do. It's just horrible timing and bad logistics, and it's not your fault. It's not the song's fault. There's so many factors. I mean, I wish it was just, we all think this song's good. It's going to be a hit, and it's just not that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, timing is such a big thing. I mean, obviously for us, She's Somebody's Daughter came out in 2019, and it did not, it just sit there until like.
Yeah, is that fair though? Because your label did. I mean,
my label closed, and also Tennille Towns had a song called Somebody's Daughter, right. So I couldn't put it out. It just sit there, for 2 years until we got married.
And there wasn't the opportunity for virility as much there. And
there wasn't. There was no For You page.
Right.
That did not exist. That For You page coming changed artists' life forever. Like, I remember when that first came out, and that was like, whoa, you can be discovered somewhere other than the radio or playing shows. Because, every artist out there that before TikTok, it was, hey, play 150 shows a year in all these little bars, go play for 50 people, go back and hope.
That was the For You page of the 80s.
Yeah, you hope 100 people show up and then go back and then hope 150 people show up. Yeah. And hopefully you can get your song played on the radio, or, it was just Facebook where they already followed you. It was like there's no way to be discovered at all other than hearing it on the radio.
Or somebody hitting the share.
The share button, maybe.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many record deals 20 years ago would have been successful had you have had a TikTok or a Twitter or an Instagram or a Facebook and you had DSPs.
Or how many songs never became the massive, like, supernovas they could have been, except for timing, strategy, wrong clip, wrong gatekeeper who didn't like a record guy.
Yeah.
All of that factors in.
It's crazy.
And it's so much, even though we're talking about, like, the technical parts of it that aren't pure to the art, which they rarely are, right?
Yeah.
But relationships are still such a big part of the world that we live in that's supposed to be just based off of audience and consumption and what do they want. It's still so relationship-based.
Yep.
Eddie, the song that you heard that you're like, oh, that's awesome.
I'm going to take it back to our experience with it because, before I joined the show, we did this show. Like, I didn't listen to music like that. I didn't even think about charts or whatever. If it was good, it was good. And I liked it, I liked it. But for us, I think when Cam played Burning House, that was kind of to us, like, to me, like, oh, the song's amazing. And, that was part of Bobby kind of just like, hey, this song's really good. We took her on tour. We played the crap out of that song, and it did end up being a big song. But we knew immediately. I don't know if you did, Bones. Immediately you hear that song, you're like, this is...
we? I'm the one that freaking made her stay and play it over and over again and changed her single that day.
Well, and that could have been why I thought it was awesome, too.
I didn't saying we. I talked to the head of Sony, and I was like, you got to change the single. This is not... But it's I remember talking to him. He's like, it's a ballad. It doesn't matter. And I also say, I have no idea what I'm talking about, because anybody that knows what they're talking about when it comes to art has no idea what they're talking about. So, but just take this as, based on my experiences, I think this song, XYZ, and they've changed the single that day.
That's crazy. And it became
and then it was
our biggest song of her.
Well, so, but revisionist history, right? I go change a single, they change a single, she's a star. That's revisionist history. The real story is because it's easy to say that, like, look at me, I'm a hero. Because I got like 5 or 6 of those revisionist history stories, like Girl Crush. Oh, I launched it. They're a massive star. That's really not how it worked. But with Cam, the head of Sony, not Nashville, Sony, New York, because that was yeah. He calls and it's like, what's going on? Why are you playing this song over and over again? And not mean, but like, what do you know? And I'm like, I know nothing except I'm watching. At the time, iTunes could dictate what my audience liked. Yeah. I'm watching this in real time. And he's like, should we change it? But it's a ballad. I'm like, if you're asking me, I think ballads are better anyway, but I understand what research says. But if you want to break a new female artist, at that time it was more impossible. You got to do something different. Odds are it's going to fail, but it's the only shot you have to crush. And to their credit, they flipped it. But what really happened was, after they flipped a single, it just didn't go to number 1. I called Rod Phillips, we've been together for 20 years, and I was like, hey, we need to bet on her. There was a movement I just started. I negotiated my contract and negotiated out an hour of national time for female artists. I was doing what I could without pandering. Yeah. I was doing what I could even behind the scenes to at least get them to like the 30s so they'd have a shot. I was like, hopefully you can. So they made her the On the Verge artist, which then guarantees you so much, which then allows you to get to a place to be tested. Yep. In a healthy spot where people have heard the song because they've made a big point. On the Verge artist with like a little thing. I'm Cam. I like Yellow. Here's my song. And so people had heard all that, and then it naturally turned into a smasher.
And it's so interesting, you talking about ballads. That's such a big conversation at radio.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
And it's so difficult, like.
They act like everybody wants to have the top down on their car driving to the beach.
And I was sitting down with a radio guy one time, because this was always a big thing for us. Yeah. Was she somebody's daughter? Like, well, it's a ballad, and we don't play ballads. I had some people tell me straight up, we don't play ballads on our station. And then I was sitting with a radio guy one time, and he said, hey, man, I got the 50 best songs of all time written down on my phone. I was like, hey, really? He's like, yeah, check them out. And he pulled up the songs, showed them to me. I started reading them down. I was like, dude, you know what's crazy? He said, what? I said, all those are ballads. Yeah. He was like, oh, my gosh. You're right. And I was like, without ballads, what is country music? Yeah. I mean, that is...
Those are the home runs.
Those are the home runs. Those are what stick.
Yes, those are sticky. They don't even have to be number 1s to be sticky, though. And we're talking about number 1s versus songs that last. Yeah. You're right.
Live Like You Were Dying. I mean, you don't have those songs without ballads.
The Dance.
The Dance. Yeah. I mean, we can sit here and talk about it.
No, we can't. Because I got some pickleball to play. Yeah. The song that it's happened a few times because I've been very fortunate I made a lot of wrong guesses too. But people only remember the wins. It's like your gambling buddies. Yeah. Man, all he does is win. No, he just tells you about the wins. Like those last. I've made countless wrong declarations. But I've had some really big wins. Buy Me a Boat.
I was about to say
it was a big one. Chris just messaged me that before it even came out, played it, whatever. Girl Crush. I was talking to Karen the night before. And she was like, so I just started playing it over and over again. Turned into a huge controversy. Best thing that ever happened for them. Then I backed away. Because other radio stations would then go, well, if Bobby's behind it. So then I also learned the strategy of go out, take a piss on it, and then get away. Yeah. Because then people would start to hold people accountable or punish them because they were associated with me. Although I don't even know them. I just like the song. But the one that I had nothing to do with that I heard, and I was like, oh, I got chill bumps on my arms. Because I was like, this song is so good.
Who Let the Dogs Out?
It's close. It's close. It's close to that.
Shoot, it's Chumbawamba.
No, it's not pop. It's country. I was too young for that. It's a country song.
Oh, okay. I was going to say
Mbop. I would even say it's a corny country song. Where the first time I heard it, I was like, I looked at the screen at the time it was on, going to scroll across your car there.
Yeah.
What?
It's a little Nas X.
No, I didn't know. Although I did go on the Today Show
Mr.
the
Mom.
day after that. It was Meant to Be.
Meant to Be.
Oh.
I was like, that's the catchiest song I've ever heard in my whole life. There were like 7 words to that song.
Yeah.
And people would be like, anybody can write that. Okay, well then do it.
Yeah.
That's what I would get so annoyed with when people would hate on like Body Like a Back Road or Meant to Be. Like simple, but there's beauty if you can nail simplicity.
It's hard to do.
If you
as
get a
creator.
great melody and it's catchy.
And that song was all catchy, hook, and the melody of that hook.
Oh, that's a
massive.
Corn Man song, by the way. Josh Miller was a writer for Corn Man
But
music.
tell Mr. Corn, let's
Mr. Man.
go.
Oh, Mr. Brett
Corn Man,
James, yeah.
And you know what? I don't like the song personally. It's fine. The song, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't not like it, but it's not like I'm like, that's my favorite song.
And I think that's one of the only few diamond songs in country history. Like,
Part of it too, BB Rex's pop side got a bunch
Yeah.
of play as well. Those are a little unfair, if I'm being
yeah.
honest.
No, I could see that.
But
It's just so catchy.
yeah, so I don't even love the song, but I was just like, this is the catchiest thing I've ever heard in my life. When I heard "It is meant to be," and that was the whole song. It to be, baby, it is meant to be. It's meant to be. I was like, wow, this is the
is
kind of song I
incredible.
can get down with.
I know the words already.
I think at times people can overthink, like you said, no ballads, summer songs. I think you could go
I think overthinking is a huge problem.
chorus, big time. Because people don't want to lose their job, right?
That's it. Nobody wants to be wrong, so you end up taking no chances on everything.
And if you do take somewhat of a chance, you're going to take it on a chance that has data behind it that says all of these things over the years have proven this is right. So I think you could go chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, 240, massive song.
Yeah.
Start with the freaking. We were talking to Steven Tyler in our studio. The microphones were off, and he was talking about Sweet Emotion. It's the first time I've ever thought about chorus first, and I've heard a few songs with chorus first.
Yeah.
But he was like, people thought we were crazy because Sweet Emotion starts out with that like, dum, 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 and then Sweet Emotion. He was like, people thought we were out of our mind because we started with the chorus. And I remember thinking, oh, I guess that's not traditional. And I could see where people would think that's crazy, but I don't. Thinking about it, that makes a ton of sense. Hit them with what they know
Yeah,
at the
right at
very.
the
Hit them
start.
with the strongest and what they know. That's what the chorus is. The catchiest, strongest part. Why not hit them right in the face with it at the beginning?
We hear all the time that, man, like it took too long to get to the chorus. It took like a minute to get there.
Well, back
That's
in the
too
day-
long. Yeah.
It was crazy. They do like 2 verses in the chorus. They do a
They
verse.
do a 30-second intro.
Yeah.
Guitar part.
what?
you
George
know?
Strait had a hit called "You'll Be There" in 05. It went to 4, and I listened to that song I think like a week or 2 ago. I mean, you got to the end of the first chorus like 2:20 in. It's the most. I'm like,
That's crazy.
I'm like, you would never do this nowadays.
There were also 4.5, 5-minute songs.
That's true.
Back then, different time,
People listen to music differently. You know, like,
but they didn't have any other choices. This
That's
is
true,
my
too.
theory. I don't think people were any better, smarter, like things anymore. They just had 2 choices. So it's listen to this 7-minute thing or this 6-minute thing. You had no chance for an option for a 2-minute thing.
that's true.
They
would
probably would
talk-
have liked that.
You would talk about a song where you were on the radio and you were like, you loved it because it was your bathroom song. Like, what
Oh
was
yeah,
it?
Matchbox 20. Yeah, Back to Good. It's like it's like CD at 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
It makes me think, like, what was that in the 7? Rich Girl was like 240. That was a song you just wanted to play over and over again.
You're all
Like Hall & Oates.
Yeah, Hall & Oates.
Where did you play it?
Oh, I didn't play it. I was just saying, like, that was a,
When he was on the radio, he's
Yeah, I
like,
was
when I
like-
have my morning show.
yeah, when I had my I just meant, like, that was one of my favorite songs from that time because it was like 2 minutes, 30 seconds. And it was like, as soon as it's over, like, oh, I got to play this thing again. Play it again, play it again, play it again.
What would you change, Chris? I'm gonna make this extremely vague because you can put any answer to it you want. What would you change about the chart process?
Ooh, man. I mean, corporate programming is a big reason why songs are staying on the chart for 50,
Staying on the
60,
chart.
staying on the chart for 50, 60
Yeah.
weeks. And it's a vicious cycle like we talked about before because that means the label has to pay more money for singles nowadays because they're pushing it longer and they stay in.
Explain pay more money because people are gonna think that means you're paying money to.
No, they're not paying radio to play
Right,
it.
right.
They're paying their promotion staff, and you might have a Northeast rep, a Southwest rep, a Midwest rep. You're paying for all their travel expenses, for flights, for rental cars, for dinners, all this other stuff. You're paying the
yeah.
band this stuff that the average consumer does not realize goes into trying to push a song to radio. And if you're promoting a song for a year, that adds up to a ton of money. And there's been instances where I think it's almost made a label go broke just because it takes so long to get that song up the chart. You spend so much money to do it. I would love for it to go back 20 years ago where you had 20-week chart runs all the time and you were able to get 3 singles out on one artist per year. That just doesn't happen anymore. I think it'd be a healthier way to do business nowadays for the country format, but I think just because of corporate programming and the monster that they have created, really. Not trying to create the monster, just that this is how we have to do things nowadays, where you'll have one song spend a year on the chart, and then it's been so long we have to move on to new music because we can't keep sending songs to radio off this one album because that isn't going to make us any kind of money. So
I think one of the like little tributaries that have come from that is with traditional linear. What do you call it? What do you call it? Kind of terrestrial.
yeah,
Radio.
yeah.
In those charts, is that that does suck. But what is cool now that we didn't have back then, when you did have songs that were moving faster, is that you have other places to actually quote unquote get a number one.
Yep.
Meaning, and a lot of the stuff is just programmers. Like I have friends at work at Sirius. They just pick their number one song. They don't. There's no real chart, but they can, right? Everybody can say whatever they want. It's awesome. And what I like about that is that they don't just have to go with whatever's been on the chart for 41 weeks. They can just say this is a number one. What's annoying too is they can just pick their friends same time.
Yeah.
But win lose. But with streaming and streaming numbers, with TikTok, there are all these ways now to have a career and have your own version of a number one or number 11 without actually being on the chart.
Yeah, and that's what's cool for an artist is like, why she's somebody's daughter. We can still put out songs. We can put out songs to DSP, Spotify, Apple Music, post about it on our socials, get people excited, and you can see what raises its hand to do the next one or whatever. But when I first in 2016, when I first sent my first single to country radio, that was unheard of. Like you could not put another song out because if you did,
You're right. It was.
if you did, they're like, oh, is he changing the
You're
single?
moving on.
You're
must be
moving
moving
on.
on.
You must be moving
You would
on.
torpedo your own
point.
single.
Yeah, you would torpedo, and everybody would be like, you can't put music out. Well, then you would be sitting there like some of these songs a year on the chart, and you're not allowed to put music out for a year. That was crushing careers back then. And now at least, hey, if it takes a year, which our song's probably going to take about a year, we can still put music out and not be crushed because of that. Because we can, hey, Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. This is still our single, obviously, because it's on the radio, but this is all this other new stuff we're putting.
And you don't want to let it go either, because if you spent this long to get it to a certain point on the chart where you get this level of airplay that's helping streaming, it's like, man, if I let it go, it's going to take forever to get back up to this point.
Oh, yeah, I'm already like thinking about doing this over again. You're just like, oh my gosh.
I know. It's like
You're
know.
just like zero. You're like, oh man, a whole other year of my life.
Are the days of like the monster hits gone? Like where you have those multiple week number ones where it's like, oh, it's this huge song, everyone will remember it. Like now, it's such a quick turnover. Boom, boom, boom. Next song, next song, next song.
I think it's getting better than it was maybe several years ago.
I think too, like there's also hits on radio that aren't hits.
For sure.
No, yeah.
And there are
is
songs that
super-
aren't hits that are hits.
That hurts. Yeah.
Like
It's
a number
super
one
wild.
that nobody knows it. Nobody knows who the artist is. It just blends in.
Yeah.
But then there are songs, like you said, that maybe peak at 11.
Yeah.
That
or
last.
Or like this Ella Langley and what you were just talking about, Riley. If that doesn't go to radio, it's already a hit.
Yeah, it's a hit.
And it's super interesting how there's some songs that are bigger hits. Like sometimes number ones are like, it's crazy to me. Like it's not as big as this other number one. It's not the same. It's super interesting and
There
wild.
are threes that are bigger than some ones.
Yes.
Little Big Town Boondocks peaked at 9, and that sounds bigger than so many number ones you're having nowadays.
I think number ones were bigger back then because
Yes,
that was the only
100% they
place.
were.
Like when
Because
you
they
think
were
about
probably
growing
more
up.
legitimate.
Yeah, and I think too, like that was the only place to hear music, right? So it was like there
That's a
wasn't
good point. Like so
There
many
wasn't-
channels, all the shows are bigger.
all the shows.
Yeah.
Like the countdown was like
Yeah,
that
you're
was
good.
you heard it there so many times, and now you're like, oh, I'll listen over here. This person, there's so much music diversified amount out amongst everybody that that's one thing I've noticed the last couple of years. Even when I go to award shows and watch, like the hits people are singing in the crowd, you don't feel people singing as much as they do when they sing. Dolly Parton gets up there and sings one of her hits. Everybody's singing 9 to 5, or like, it's just a different feeling when those songs from the 90s are being sung in those award shows. I don't know why.
Chris, as you talked about a song being on the chart for a year. I think also now there is, with certain artists, deservingly so, they fly through the chart. They hit number one, and it's gone.
It's gone, yeah.
So it's almost polar. Somebody stays on the chart forever, and it's like, come on, you can do it, buddy, come on. Or it's like a Wallen song that does 11 weeks and is gone, and you're like, wait, I don't even remember that as a single.
I mean, if you're a publisher, now that I'm in the publishing world, you want the songs that stay on the chart for a year
Yeah.
because that means that the publisher and the writers of that song are going to make more money versus something that flies up in 12 weeks and then is gone. Because if you're Morgan or Luke, you have so many songs in your catalog that radio still plays. It's almost like they have to pick and choose what songs to play. If you're a newer artist who only has 1 or 2 hits and it spends 50 weeks on the chart and it tests well, radio's just going to keep playing that song over and over again. And as a publisher, that's the kind of hit you want more than a song by Luke or Morgan or somebody that's just going to fly up and come back down. So
What's the marsh to get through? What's the hardest part of the marsh of the chart?
I would say probably the 30s and 40s is the toughest part of the chart.
If you get to what part of the chart, you kind of have a new breath of air.
If you get top 30, I think you get your second wind. I mean, especially if you have the research to back it up. And you see a lot of songs, not just Drew's, where you get top 30 and then you go faster. Back in the days, Steve Holy and Brand New Girlfriend was that, where it just spent forever in like the 50s and 40s. It got to the 30s, and then it just started taking off. Because once it got that research back and once more people started believing in it, it sucks that it's that way. You have to, burn through 20, 30, 40 weeks in some cases to get to that point, which is a lot of money to pay staff to promote this on the radio. But, I mean, if it works, and you're able to hopefully be a gold title one day and be a recurrent and still get played on the radio.
And that means a gold title is?
It's basically a recurrent. I forgot the exact threshold for how many spins you get to.
But it's just like it's a popular song that was older.
Like Kenny Chesney and When the Sun Goes Down, which Brett James wrote. That's a gold title.
I like how he plugs his own stuff.
Radio still. I mean,
Let
you knew I was going to.
Let me give you an example.
No, that's good.
A random example.
Yeah.
I mean, chances are Brett James and Ashley Gorley are going to have a lot of
Lots of
examples
gold.
for you to go to for those guys.
Is that 30 spot tough because radio plays the same songs over and over?
Well, the point of radio playing, and again, I'm not a music guy, but the point of radio playing it over and over is the average person doesn't listen for that long.
Yeah.
So let's say the average person listens for, I'm going to make up a number, 28 minutes. That's the amount of time they can listen to a song. Radio, and I guess I'll speak for radio for a second, they want to make sure that when the person listens for that 28 minutes, they hear the absolute best, biggest songs.
Okay.
So if you're listening for 2 hours straight, which is an abnormal amount of listening at one block of time, you're going to hear that song an abnormal amount of times if it's the biggest and best song. So if you listen to the radio for 28 minutes, like everybody else, you're not going to hear the song twice. But if you listen for 3 hours and 18 minutes while you're on a boat straight, you're probably going to hear that song at least twice, and it's going to feel like, didn't I just listen to this? Chris, anything you'd like to say about what I just said?
Yeah, and I mean, that's going back to familiarity. Radio wants to play enough of the recurrence because that's the song that people know. And if people know them and they like them, they're going to keep tuning in to the radio station, which means your ratings go up, you get more advertising money, and that's how radio people make money. So if you're playing stuff that people don't know, they're more inclined to turn the station off or switch the station. So that's a big deal. And like radio wants to play enough recurrence, but they got to play a certain amount of new singles to stay on the panel, which means they get all the shows. And labels and artists will come play their shows and stuff like that. So it's a give and take for them.
So the answer is, it feels like songs are played all the time because radio wants to make sure in that average listening span, listeners hear the best songs possible, but they're not going to do it twice. But they are going to hit it back. When I was in pop, we did it like at an hour 45, and that felt like we were burning them hard. Like that felt like it was all the time.
Oh, some stations play a song, 80, 90 times a week. And that's
I remember
crazy
70
to think
being
about.
huge.
Yeah.
70. I was like, wow, they're playing a song 70 times a
The
week.
station I worked at up in Buffalo, we would play like the top song maybe 50 times, which is still high, but not nearly as high as some other stations playing it 80, 90 times
We'll
a week.
take all them 80, 90.
Yeah, about to say.
Well,
Maybe got any spare.
And think about it. Let's just say 70, because that was a crazy number for me back 10 years ago. I was like, man, 70 times a week. That is, let's break it down. It's 10 times a day. So that's not even once every 2 hours.
Right, that's not
and
that
that was crazy that it would be played that much.
Yeah, and I think what was crazy was I didn't see any really daytime airplay except for some stations until I was like almost 15 on the chart.
I thought it was age 15. I was like, bro.
No, I mean like 15th spot on the chart. Just because it's like, that's what's so hard we fight with is like, just for your song to be heard, you're getting airplay and it's working up the way up the chart, but it's all from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And nobody's really listening.
And nobody's really...
Limited listening.
Maybe your truck drivers,
limited
and
listening.
stuff, and you're like, man, when do I get this daytime airplay?
A couple things before we jump here. We had Tracy Lawrence on the show today, Chris. Tracy's awesome. I've known him for a long time. But we were talking about Pay Me a Birmingham. He was talking about the song. Fun fact about Pay Me a Birmingham.
Yeah, Ken Mullins also recorded that song and had it out at pretty much the same time. Maybe a month or two difference from when Tracy released it, the radio. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And they both were, they were both charting songs.
Yeah, they
right?
were.
Like, they weren't just
That's
out.
They were
Crazy.
charging at the same time. Yeah.
That would not happen today.
No.
Another thing that I didn't know until, I would just play this song a lot on, like, the dance party, and I was talking to Gary LaVox, who's a buddy of mine, and I was talking about Life is a Highway from Cars. Actually, wasn't.
That was never an
was never a
official
single.
single, and it only got to 18. And I blow
What?
people's minds when I tell them that. Yeah,
But getting to 18 and not even a single.
Not even a
that's
single. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
yeah, because I mean that was way before TikTok and Instagram and all this stuff on social media. Like the Cars movie came out, and their version's really good, and stations just started playing it. Lyric Street, their label, put My Wish out to radio after Me and My Gain as the official single, and radio's like, we don't care, we're still going to play this one. We will also play that one, but we're still going to play Life is a Highway. You ask any average fan, they think Life is a Highway is their
100%.
biggest hit, and it is their biggest hit, but it never even got top 10.
I thought it was a massive hit. I was like, look at that. How many?
That's crazy.
It's their best streaming song still to this day, and it never even got to the top 15 at radio.
Wow.
Drew, what'd you think of that TikTok I did about you? Was that accurate?
Dude, that was
No,
huge.
I'm not like, tell me you
No.
like me. I mean, was that accurate?
No, it was super accurate.
Because after I finished it, I was like, I just said a bunch of crap from what I roughly remembered from talking to Drew, and like I really enjoyed our time together. And then I was like, do I want to go and fact check it and pull it down because I was kind of wrong about a couple things, or do I just want to leave it up? And then I thought, man, if I'm wrong, but I never looked at it again.
No, dude, it was great.
Was he wrong about anything?
I'm trying to go through it in my head to see if there was anything that he was wrong about.
I was like, there's this guy.
yeah, he's doing it.
You never believe it. He's only born with one eye.
I think
And
the
his
only thing
lips
was,
wouldn't
you
open.
You said 10 million streams when we woke up. It was 10 million views, but that was the only thing. 10 million views on TikTok, and I think you said 10 million streams.
You know,
but that's the same
but
thing.
You're kind of streaming a video.
Yeah, you're
You
streaming
know?
a video.
Hey,
But besides that-
potato, Drew.
Man,
that's why
that's
people
it.
don't like you. Crap like that.
No, it was great though.
What I'll say is I've heard from so many individual radio stations, ones that either I'm on who have sent a message to me, or just random DMs from people talking about you just randomly showing up at the radio station.
Oh no way!
Like
They did. That's awesome.
Like they would be like, "Oh yeah, they either saw the clip of me talking about you, or this clip from this podcast, or the video that I did on TikTok that got 500,000 streams.
Crazy.
How about
Yeah,
that?
I like
streams.
it.
And they were like, "Oh, that guy, he just showed up at the station one day and was like, hey, I'm Drew, I'm an artist." And we're like, "Okay, commit." And like, we love him, but
Old
you
school.
just showed up.
Showed up, man. And that was, I'm glad that you shared that story because I think I've been trying to get this story out for so long and I haven't been able to do it until your podcast, you posting that. You'd be amazed how many messages I got. People listen to this podcast hugely.
Don't be so surprised, buddy.
I am so
He's like-
surprised.
This one right now?
He's
I
like,
am
you'll
so
you'll
surprised.
never believe this, everybody.
I'm so surprised. I'm not kidding. Like obviously I know what you do is special, and I told you that when we were here. Like you break artists, and the amount of messages. It was like your endorsement for me as an artist was a huge deal, Bobby, and it was just that. Since then, more radio stations started playing. I got texts from so many radio friends who were like, "Oh my gosh, did you see Bobby's TikTok?" They started sharing it with me. That's how I found it, and that is like life-changing for an artist. To tell this story has been so difficult. Like you have blogs write about it, all this stuff, but sit down and tell the podcast.
Long form, it's hard.
Long
You
form.
don't get the opportunity a lot. Yeah.
You don't get this opportunity. And the amount of artists that have reached out, young artists all around the world in the country that listen to your podcast, messages that I got in my DM of like, hey, your story has inspired me and wants me to keep going. I'm in little Montana right now, and I listen to Bobby's podcast because it helps me, inspire me to play music. And he was like, that drive that you always believe in yourself, not giving up, makes me think that I can keep going and doing this. And that is a huge, huge deal for all artists out there.
Well, I'll say, and that's very kind, I don't think anybody can break an artist anymore. I think that is a superpower that is gone. I understand what you're saying. Like, we're able to shed light on a specific story with an audience and it spread. I don't know how you feel about this, Chris. I don't think anybody can break an artist anymore.
No.
I think it's an artist by a single entity is unbreakable. A mass amount of people on a platform can show the significance of an artist or a song. But I think the breaking, I don't have that power anymore. I'm not even arguing what you're saying, but I understand what you're saying. But I used to have the power to break an artist. Now, though, I would say it's even more valuable. I think what I do is even more valuable, not because it's me, but because even though it's harder to do because of numbers, there are 100,000 people now trying to do it. So if you have one person that can do it and have any audience at all with any sort of texture, the value of that is almost worth more than what the value used to be when I could break an artist.
Well, just the value of your story. Like just walking there and you telling 2 minutes of that. like you said, reached 500,000 people or whatever. Like, there were so many people that just reached out to me like, oh my goodness, you're the She's Somebody's Daughter guy. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know that till we saw your story, like how hard you had to work to get your song on the radio. We didn't realize it was that difficult. We thought, oh, an artist puts a song out, labels like it, they sign you, it works its way up the charts. Like, not for freaking me, you know, like that wasn't how it worked. And even like people that have followed my journey back home for years and years and years, they're like, we did not realize you lost everything and you had to build all of this alone, you know, and that was like super kind of you to do that. So thank you.
I mean, if it wasn't a good story, we'd deleted it.
Thank you, boss.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Very nice.
And also, people will see and be like, wait, you're not Tennille Towns.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
yeah,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
not the Tennille Towns guy.
Look,
You know, you forgot that Drew showed up my algorithm, I don't know, what, 2 years ago?
I remember that,
3 years
yeah.
ago? I mean, it was a
Yeah.
long time ago. It was like on Instagram, he just kept popping up on my, I didn't follow him, but Drew Baldridge, it was like you and
Somebody
your,
listened to your podcast.
it's like him with those radio stations just popping up.
Yeah,
Yes,
here
they-
this guy just keeps coming around.
Never
That's what I
stopped.
always felt like. I
That
felt
was
like I
cool.
was one of those guys in Nashville. It's like, he's just here. Oh, there's Drew again. There's Drew again. It's like, well, finally we got something worth to talk about, you know. But that was super cool that happened.
So a couple things, and because we're gonna wrap up. We've done over an hour. Chris, you're awesome, dude. I never got to meet you until now. Like, I want you to come back and we just talk like nerdy music stuff.
Yep, that's what I do best, or at least the
Yeah.
only thing I do
love
good.
No,
you know?
it's crazy. I could just be like,
Very interesting, man. It really is.
yeah. Drew, we're rooting for you, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And I've heard so many people text me in town, Bobby's talking about you right now on air and play the song. And man, thank you. Like, life-changing, really, truly.
But if we didn't think it was good or your story was good, we would. So it's not just I like you, because I do like you. But if your song sucked, I wouldn't play it.
Well,
Or if your story sucked, it wouldn't resonate with people. Like, you own that. I was just a conduit
well,
at
thanks for saying that,
at
Bobby.
the appropriate time that allowed your story to get out and it to resonate with folks. Like, that's what it is. It's you and your song. Like, right now, I got lucky to be a vessel and the timing was right. So I didn't do anything really. And if it wasn't good, we'd delete it like this. So yeah, I appreciate you guys coming over and just talking about. This is very granular, but I like that because it's not always like that. Where we can talk about charts and have an artist understanding, and have Chris, who studied it and worked in radio and worked in publishing, and then also it's good to have Eddie here.
I mean, dude, I learned it. I didn't say anything, but I was like, all this stuff is really interesting. I knew nothing about it.
Follow Chris at Chris Owen Country on Instagram, and Drew Baldridge, man, go over and. Drew Baldridge Music. Drew Baldridge Music.
Brr, brr, brr.
At Drew Baldridge Music. Both of you guys are killing it. Thank you for coming, and it's a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I thank you.